All right, well, I will now declare the meeting open, and I will welcome everybody, and welcome Susan. It's good to have you with us, and we obviously I understand we've got you on mute and you're listening, and but anyway, we'll if you need to, obviously, if there's any issues after the meeting, no doubt we'll be prepared happy to help you with any questions around that. And hopefully, all being well, next meeting we will be live streaming. Anyway, can I ask, first of all, start off with our prayer, and can I ask Dave Collard, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. We ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dave, for doing that, and welcome everybody. There's a reasonably full agenda. I sent you out an email yesterday or last night from Rachel, and Rachel will talk about her proposal, her amendment tomorrow. When we get to it. Sorry, Rachel. So we'll have a discussion around her amendment, and of course, if there are others that people wish to make, if they can just let me know through Aisha so that we can deal with it. I make it clear that we'll just be dealing with one issue at a time so that there's no confusion. So apologies and declarations of interest. There are no apologies because everyone's in attendance, and declarations of interest where an issue comes up that there is a matter that you need to declare, we can do so at that time. There are no deputations. Mayoral announcements. I just want to advise you of discussions that are going on around Three Waters. That's happening at local government and at central government level. There's also, you may have seen some suggested proposal changes to the Resource Management Act. That's been discussed at that level. And also just the civil defence as a consequence of COVID particularly, but also part of the drought, but mainly COVID, have now been involved in welfare and have done a tremendous job for us. As I must say, I commend them and our iwi leaders and all our staff in our local authority, but also in the north, for the way in which they've addressed the issues that have come up as a consequence of COVID. So, Sean, if you can please relay that to staff. And at some stage, I'd like to do an electronic message out to each of the staff members, thanking them for that support.
Thanks, Mayor John.
I've just come off a business conference call with our business leaders across the north, and I've got to say that while there are obviously challenges and they're all working hard to address them and support each other, there is also, given that we are likely to go to level 2 next week, there is also a feeling of positivity. Now, I don't want to exaggerate it because everyone's aware there are challenges, but the business people have been working hard, as have, as I say, our iwi leaders, our local government, many others, and our community has come together, and I'm very confident that our community will continue working together to address our problems. Our biggest challenge is there's two areas that are significant, and I'm not trying to demean any others. Our rural area, and particularly in our farming with the drought, is a challenge for us, and that has impact flow into our business community. And of course, tourism is also another area. But that doesn't mean to say that there aren't other areas that we will need to be helpful with when we can. The rates relief that we've given in the emails and attention or phone calls that I've had have been well addressed, and again I just want to thank our staff for the way in which they're approaching those to give assistance and support to our people in our community. Thank you all. thank each and every one of you for the way in which we've all stepped up. I got to say it's a great honour, and it's a reflection on our community and on our nation and the way in which we have joined together and come together. So thank you all for that. I think that covers all the mural announcements that I need to make at the moment. We're having generally regular meetings anyway, so well, discussions on various things. So that brings us into item 5, the confirmation of the previous minutes. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, John.
Thank you, John Vucic. Just by the way, when it comes to speaking, I intend to, other than asking for a seconder, which you'll just have to take potluck as to who that may be, I intend then to go in alphabetical order, starting with Ann Court as Deputy Mayor and then going through alphabetical order, asking you to speak if you wish to. And again, from time to time, I'll reverse it so that the likes of John Vucic doesn't always get to be the last one to speak. Times, John, when you'll get to speak first, etc. And of course, I'll also ask the community board chairs and our chief executive if they wish to comment as well. So it's been moved and seconded. Has anybody got any comment that they wish to make, any issues that they wish to raise on the minutes? If not,
Your Worship, it's Kelly.
Oh, Kelly, hi.
Yes, I do note that this item here is a slight amendment or reconfirmation of the minutes on this point. So I wish to vote against this as I did in the last meeting, please. I don't know if Aisha needs to do a separate motion. So I'm happy with the rest of the minutes, but not the Sparnos Holdings.
Okay, all right. Well,
been reworded, but it still reflects what I was voting against. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So in which case then, John, with your approval, I will put the resolution to include the minutes. I'm just trying to think, Aisha, I might need some advice on this.
So effectively, you are just confirming that that was the discussion. So it's not that, so if Councillor Stratford was to vote for this motion, it's not then supporting the motion that is being amended regarding the statement of intent. She would just be agreeing that the minutes and this proposed amendment to the minutes is accurate with what was discussed. The minutes would still record that she was against this particular motion.
Yes. What we're confirming is the accuracy of the minutes as opposed to the resolution itself. Kelly, does that help? So all you're doing is voting to say the minutes are a true and correct record or not?
Yes, whilst we're doing that though, the rewording is not clear. Are you able to go over that? Because we're all looking at the screen.
So are you saying that item 4, the Far North Holdings Limited provide quarterly feedback and risk reports to the Assurance, Risk and Finance Committee is not an accurate record of what we'd agreed?
I need to open up my agenda and double check. Sorry.
That's as I understand it.
I'll just vote against it.
Okay.
Just leave it at
all
that.
Right. Well, let's just put it's a true and correct record. So, Ann Court, can I ask you to? I beg your pardon.
Councillor Tiffany here. I just wanted that section in the amendment of 6.2 where the mayor used his casting vote to defeat the motion. I thought that was defeated because it didn't have a majority because it was already 5-all. So your casting vote wasn't actually used to defeat it. It was already defeated.
Just sorry. Can you just bring me 6.2?
Page 17 on the bottom of the document there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Muku. I don't know. Can somebody please show me the Aisha? Can you bring up what it is that Muku's?
That's 6.2 of the minutes. If we go down to the amendment that was moved by Councillor Foy and seconded by Councillor Smith.
Aisha, could you bring those up, please?
So, Dolly, can you bring those up from the agenda? I guess just to respond to Councillor Tepania, Your Worship, as per the email that we circulated, the minutes record that the casting vote was utilised because our standing orders say that that's how we operate.
Yes.
And
Oh,
the legislation.
I did understand that we have a casting vote being applied to pass it, but the way that it's worded here, you actually didn't need to use a casting vote at all, because in our standing orders 18.1, decisions have to be made by a majority vote, and 5-all isn't a majority vote anyway, so it's already failed, it's already lost. It's not actually because of a casting vote that it's lost.
Yeah, look, and if I may speak, Moko, you did raise that, and at the time I said you're 100% correct. When it's a tie, the item is defeated with no casting vote required. And I know that we had a bit of a discussion around it, but the discussion went into the direction of, is there a casting vote? Yes, there is a casting vote, but what you actually said is 100% correct.
Yes, but the issue is that I have a deliberate and a casting vote.
That's right, Your Worship. You're in the amendment there, your deliberate vote made it 5-all anyway, so you didn't need to cast the vote. You could cast the vote to make it pass, but it had already failed anyway, so it wasn't needed. The one before that, you used to cast
Can I just pause for a minute, Moku? Can I please have the item brought up so I can read it?
Your Worship,
It's just
Anne would like to raise a point of order.
Yes, Anne, thank you.
The point of order is, do the minutes accurately reflect the debate? And they do. Whether or not we can argue around the margins about whether that is a correct use of standing orders is immaterial, as this is a retrospective gaze at what was agreed on the day. So on the day, the Mayor used his casting vote to defeat the motion.
He didn't use it to
the
defeat
correct
the motion,
use
it
of
was already
standing
failed.
Order, Anne got the floor.
Whether that was the correct use of standing orders at the time does not, pursuant to standing orders, make the minutes invalid. So the motion on the table today is purely, are the minutes a true and accurate record of the conversation that happened at the last council meeting? And they are.
To be honest, I'm so surprised that this hasn't come up in the past, that 5-all is a defeated motion and anyway, but we'll just leave it.
Okay, thank you. All right,
and I'm happy to leave it, Mr. Mayor, but
thank you.
I didn't think you used the
And
card.
we'll address those issues as they go forward. Thank you, councillors.
Your
Right.
Worship, we'll get staff to send a missive around after the meeting, just making absolutely clear what standing orders are on this point, just to tie it up.
There has already been a missive, Sean, thank you. I don't know that we need to be advised, but it will all be far wiser going forward. Right, can we have Councillor Court vote, please?
In favour, Your Worship.
Councillor Clendon?
Aye.
Councillor Collard?
Aye.
Councillor Foy?
Aye.
Councillor Radich?
Aye.
Councillor Smith?
Aye.
Councillor Stratford?
Against.
Councillor Tapana?
Against.
I beg your pardon. And Councillor Vucic. Councillor Vucic?
I found the mute button. Aye.
Thank you. And I'm in favour as well. So the motion is carried. Thank you all. We will now go to 6.1, terms of reference for portfolios. And I want to thank Rachel or Councillor Smith for the work that she did with Sean on producing the paper that's attached to this. Thank you for the work that we've done, and this is to try and make sure that we have consistency. So I'm going to first of all move the motion. Do I have a seconder for it, please?
I'm happy to second your worship, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Appreciate that. So I just want to make some comments on it, and it's this, that these terms of reference are there for us to be consistent in the way in which we deal with issues that we've been given as councillors responsibilities for. And I just want to make the point that it's a discussion item. Probably no one has more experience in this regard than our Deputy Mayor in her liaison when she was portfolio or holder of our infrastructure, etc., but also transport. In this case, it's a matter of just making sure that we, as elected members, are well informed so that we can inform our fellow councillors. It's not a meeting, it's not a minutes, and we don't need an agenda. It's purely a discussion, in the same way as recently we've been having updates on COVID-19. For those councillors who wish to join, the staff can give us updates and do, and similarly with water. And those have been very informative, very helpful, keeping councillors informed, and that's the purpose of what we're trying to set up here, is an information share, keeping councillors informed, councillors having the opportunity to have a political input into whatever it is that is being developed and evolved, so that we're all working together. And ultimately, of course, the purpose is also to ensure that once you've heard or been informed as to what direction something's happening, that the councillors are then informed as well. So I just wanted to make those comments. It is important that we remember that at the end of the day, while we give direction as councillors, as elected members, as governance, at the same time, and we want to be kept informed of what's happening operationally, it's not our job to go and dig the ditches. So those are my comments. Does anyone else? I will just start off with Rachel. You've seconded the motion, so you'd be welcome to make comment, and then I'll just go through each of the councillors and ask if they want to make any further comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep it brief. I just want to acknowledge the collaboration that we eventuated to between governance and operations in this process. It was a really great example of how we can strive to achieve what we indicated at the beginning of the term was a real desired outcome for both governance and for the operational side. So I'd really just like to acknowledge the work that Sean and his team and the support that Your Worship and Deputy Mayor Councillor Court put into getting to this point. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Rachel. Appreciate that. Councillor Court.
I'm happy with the agenda item as presented, Your Worship. I have no further comments.
Thank you. Councillor Clinton.
Same, yes, I think it's a good move. I approve of it. I've got no particular comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Collard.
Sorry, yeah, no further comment at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Worship. Just on page 28, I just wanted to highlight the fact about the PG chair and the relationship with the committee chair, being informed with developments, trends, and best practice in the portfolio's responsibilities. So I think that maybe we need to ensure that those communication lines are kept open, and maybe some formalities around some catch-up meetings between the PG chair or the portfolio holders and the chair of committees within council. So between elected members, I'm sure that we can sort that out. I just wanted to highlight that and signal that we probably need to work out with the governance admin to have those regular meetings scheduled into our diaries.
Yes, as I say, that well, I hear what you say, Felicity, and not disagreeing with you. At the same time, we want to make sure that the whole purpose is for governance to be informed, to have a political input, to keep their fellow councillors informed, and we need to just make sure that when we talk about regular meetings, that we're not overwhelming our operational wing with too many of those. But anyway, thank you for your comments. Can I hear from Councillor Radich? Any
Yeah,
comment?
no comment.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Oh, Councillor, you've already spoken. Councillor Stratford.
Kia ora. On page 29 in the confidentiality and code of conduct, yes, some meetings will be commercially sensitive, but I think that it should say not accordingly elected members. It should be members should not share the content, or it shouldn't be in there at all, because under our already signed code of conduct, or and our under the Local Government Act, we abide by confidentiality already. So I just take issue with it should be members, not just elected members, or take the confidentiality out.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear from who's the report writer on their thoughts on this. Will or Caroline?
Or
Your Worship,
yep, away you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the intention was perhaps some clumsy wording there. We can tweak those words accordingly. We can take members should not share and just delete accordingly elected. Just put members should not share.
Thank you.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you
Thanks,
very much, Will. Thank you, Kelly. Have you got any other comments, Kelly?
No, thank you. Happy with it. It's great.
Thank you. Awesome. Councillor Tepanier.
Sure, I just wanted to say thanks to Councillor Smith, yourself, Deputy Mayor, and those that put these together. They're really, really great to see some terms of reference for these portfolios. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that. Councillor Vucic.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I support it. Terms of reference are critical. The comment is really along the lines of Councillor Foy. Critical to this role is not only being informed and being up to date, informing others, but when there's some action that's taken, it's critical that the communication and the work gets done through either the committees or the council. And I think we all understand that. I'm not asking for any changes, so I support it.
Thank you. Again, I think it's important. Thank you, that Councillor Vucic, an important point, that the whole purpose of portfolio holders is to be informed and ensure that their fellow councillors through our committee structure, or may from time to time be directly to council, are informed, and then any feedback can be fed back. But as I say, the important thing is that we are here to listen, to give a political perspective, but as I say, we're not down there panel beating the truck. Okay, can I come to Board Chair Mike Edmonds, please?
No comment.
Thank you, Mike. Adele Gardner.
No comment from me, thank you.
Okay, Belinda.
No comment, thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you all. All right, well that then means that we've all had an opportunity to have comments. Sean, do you and the staff want to make any further comments?
Just, John, that we're looking forward to, the next graduated step in good lane keeping and coordination between governance and operations. This is always a tricky thing, and we've come from a checkered past. We think this is a really progressive move. We took our modelling off Waimakariri Council. It's a AA council, and we're a long way below that, but with big aspirations, and the way they run their portfolios is, as Mayor John has said, is very much like the Tuesday and Thursday meetings that we currently have, where there are no agenda and no minutes, but elected members come up, talk to the staff, and they're great meetings. I really enjoy our Tuesday and Thursday meetings with the elected members that currently attend those two subcommittees, if you like. And the second part of the way Waimak does it is that to address Councillors Foy and Vucic's points, is at the end of each respective standing committee, the portfolio holders are given the opportunity, it's usually just oral, to give a portfolio update and be prepared to answer any questions that the councillors might have. It's a really low-level way of quite frequent refresh of what's going on inside the portfolio. Now, what we've got written here today is not exactly that, but it is the negotiated position I think we can kick off with. And I also thank Councillor Smith for her grace in finding a middle space on what we think will be healthy going forward. So we really looking forward to trying to make this work across all of the 6 portfolios. Yeah, John, thanks.
Thank you. And again, I just acknowledge Rachel's input into this. And Sean, thank you for those comments. And I just also make the point that given that we've now set these out, it's a ongoing feast. We will, if we need to, obviously come back and address anything that needs to be addressed. So with that discussion, I intend to now go to the vote, and I'll ask Councillor Court to comment, to vote, please.
I'm in favour of the recommendation. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Vusic.
Aye.
Councillor Tepanier.
For, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stratford.
Aye.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Radich.
Aye.
Councillor Foy.
Aye.
Councillor Collard.
Aye.
Councillor Clendon.
Yes, support.
And I'm in favour as also. So the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you all very much for that discussion. Can I now take us to item 6.2, which is the terms of reference for Infrastructure Committee? And can I ask Felicity if you would want to move this motion, and John Vusic might wish to second it?
Thank you very much, Worship. Yes, I'm happy to please move this motion, and
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, so thank you both for that. Felicity, did you wish to make comment on this? And then I'll ask Councillor Vusic, and then I'll go alphabetically through the list of councillors to ask if they have comment. Felicity, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to recognise the work that's been done on this, and I agree with the recommendation put forward. I agree with our council working towards options to try and do the actual work, get that spade in the ground as fast as and efficiently as possible. I would also like to highlight about the Infrastructure Committee and its responsibilities. And when we look at on page 34, the significant projects spend monitoring and reporting, that this section of our council is, in my opinion, the most important part of our council, because it's the doing part of our council. And I think, in my opinion, it needs to be resourced sufficiently, and I hope that we're going to have some conversations around that in the future to ensure that we get the work done on the ground and that our community sees those results.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foy. Councillor Vusic.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I agree. I agree with option 1, removing that lower limit. So therefore, I agree with the as it is posted. I might add that there's a lot of elected members on this committee, and the upper limit may make some people think, but because there's a lot of elected members there, I'm comfortable with this $3 million limit and upper limit. And I also might add that that was in the previous term as well. So I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Vusic. Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favour of the recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Clendon, any comment?
Oh, yeah, well, only that I wouldn't agree with Councillor Foy that this is the most important group. I think we're all equally important, but alongside that, I'm happy to support the motion. It makes sense. It clarifies a potential conflict of interest there, so that's good.
Okay, I'll look afterwards. We'll have a verbal, electronic wine to settle your hurt feelings, David. Thank you for that. Councillor Collard.
Yeah, no further comment, John, I support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radich.
So what we're saying here is that $3 million doesn't, in regard to approval for tender contracts, that doesn't have to come to the full council meeting. The infrastructure committee can do it.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, well, no, I'm totally against that.
Okay.
That's a joke.
Sorry, Maddie, you just cut out. You said you were against it and then you added some other words. I didn't. Are you there, Maddie?
Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah. We just lost you. You said you were against it and then you made some other comment which we didn't hear.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of money, $3 million, and that should be approved by full council, not by the infrastructure committee.
Can I just may I offer something there? Yeah, John.
You just let Maddie finish first.
Yes. No, I finished.
You finished. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Sean.
Councillor Maddie, the committee already has the power to spend up to 3 million, but the way it's framed is it's anything between 500,000 and 3 million. The CEO previously had up to 500,000, so it made perfect sense. I could cover things off up to 500,000 and the committee would have to carry anything up to 3 million. What's happened is because of, as time's passed and it's become appropriate, you as a council have given me up to 1 million now, so you've doubled my delegation. The odd thing now is that I look after everything up to 1 million and the committee is still set at 500,000 up to 3 million. So it's a big overlap. So really this is just a tidy up order. It's just to say, look, given that the CEO's has gone up to 1 million, it would make sense for the committees to now be adjusted from 1 million to 3 million. The reason that's not what the paper says is that I actually appreciate the opportunity to come to you as a council anytime I like, even if it's within my delegation of $1 million. I'd like to be able to come to my seniors and put things to them that I think need councillor scrutiny. So we got rid of the 1 million idea, and now we're saying that for the committee, it's just anything at all from 0 up to 3 million. They have the power to cover, and I have the power to cover anything up to 1 million, and we'll come to the committee anytime I like. So back to the point, there is no increase in the infrastructure committee's upper limit at the moment, but you could still, of course, in this debate, decide that you don't agree with that upper limit and never have.
Yeah, Councillor, and thank you for that, Councillor Radich. I'll come back to you if I might. John, is that you, John?
Yes, I was just going to add to what Sean's saying, and that's why that option 1, remove the lower limit, and especially when we're looking at going forward, looking at the social procurement, I think they are likely to be well lower than the $3 million. But again, having the councillors' input into that would be good as we find our way in that area. So that's why I'm saying I support it. And yes, it was here previously in the last term with upper limit, so that hasn't changed.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Smith.
I have no comment. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Stratford.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it doesn't reference the procurement board decision making prior to it going to the infrastructure network committee. Is that still going to happen?
You can talk to that, Your Worship, if you wish.
Yes, please do, sure.
Thanks.
Yes, I understand it, yes.
The procurement board was installed by me when I arrived with elected members on it because I wanted more scrutiny over our procurement process. What happened was that we found ourselves slower to procure than our other councils in the Alliance, and that particularly bit us when it came to the NTA. Because they're getting roadworks done that we were missing out on because of the difficulty of getting elected members into the room on a frequent enough basis to do tender boards. We discussed this at length with elected members, and where we've ended up now is still perfectly functional. It's just for procurement boards to be run for the CEO. It doesn't require elected members to attend. You're welcome to drop in anytime you like. So I call tender boards at the drop of a hat, and we get really close scrutiny on the process to make sure, it's just for me to make sure that there's good, transparent and proper following of procedures in letting these big tenders, so that I know if we will survive audit or any investigation on these things. Therefore, they're off the sort of formal elected member calendar. I think this is going to work quite well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks. And at the end of last year, I remember you talking about this, but elected members were going to workshop procurement through Councillor Vusich's committee. Have you got that coming up, Councillor Vusic? Because social procurement and procurement were two, combining that is a big aspiration for elected members.
And I can add to that, that is definitely on the cards and coming up. As Sean said, that the whole area of procurement board's been looked at, but be assured it is coming up. And tomorrow, I believe, you're going to have a presentation of social procurement, what it means.
Yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of the appetite that some elected members had to be involved in procurement process. And I can see why we wouldn't, definitely. But I do support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stratford. Councillor Tepanier?
Kia ora, no further comments, thanks.
Thank you very much. Do Councillor Community Board Chair Mike Edmonds?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Belinda, Councillor Chair Belinda Ward?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Chair Adele?
Yes, no, I'm fine, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Can
thank
I
you
say
all
something?
for those. Yes, of course, ma'am.
Carl?
Yes, of course.
I just listened to what you said, Sean, and fair enough, you got up to $1 million to spend, but we as elected members have confidence in you in doing that because you've got a big portfolio. And, we look up to you in regard to that. But in regard to the $3 million for the infrastructure committee to go forward and just give out approved tenders, no. Just look at the debacle we had last year regarding roading. That's a prime example. And yeah, I'm disappointed on this one. It's that's a lot of ratepayers' money, and it should go back to full council. But
okay, thank you, Councillor Radich. Yep, thank you. We've understood your point. Okay, I'm now going to ask councillors to vote on the motion, and I'll start with Councillor Court, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Clendon.
Aye, in favour.
Councillor Collard.
Yes, I support that.
Councillor Foy.
Yes, I support.
Councillor Radich.
No.
Councillor Smith.
In favour, thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Stratford.
Aye.
Councillor Tepanier.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Vusic.
Yes, aye.
And I support the motion as well. So the motion is carried. Thank you all very much for your input.
Can I have mine recorded, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, yes, it is, Matty. Yes, it certainly is. Thank you. Right, we come to item 6.3, and I'm going to move this motion. Do I have a seconder for it, please?
Yes, Kelly.
Thank you, Councillor Stratford. Right, I'm going to ask if there's any discussion on the proposal. So I'll start with Councillor Court.
In the interest of full disclosure, I did not read 550 pages. I was begging for mercy after the first 50 and had a cursory look. It all seemed to be in order, but I have to say it was very technical. So I'm heavily reliant here that Janice Smith, being the guru that she is, and William Taylor, being the awesome guy that he is, completely understand this, and that the recommendation is completely above board. I have no further comments to make other than those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Court. As I told you this morning, I would have won the bet that I tried to get Dave Collard to take. But anyway, thank you for that comment. Can I ask, can we just go through any comments? David Clendon, please.
No, I'm equally guilty of not having read the entire document, but it's a technical change. It's not substantive in any way that I can understand, and I think we're in good hands. So yeah, I'm quite happy to see it go through.
Thank you. Councillor Councillor Collard, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, I was very nervous to take that bet because there's no way that I've read 590 odd pages either in total. But I take the, I have the confidence that this is right, and I support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Foy.
Yes, I support this.
Thank you. Councillor Radich.
Yes, support.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am in the same boat as Councillor Court, where I tried to digest it, but given the number of pages, it went a lot over my head. I would be really keen, if possible, to just hear comment from perhaps Sean or Will or Janice, just in regard to the report, if there's anything that they feel they would like to speak to. Otherwise, okay, I'm happy for it to proceed. Thank you.
I will ask them to make comment when we've gone through the councillors. Thank you. Councillor Stratford.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same, but I do have one comment, and that was just in the, I did read it. I checked what the report said against what those 500 odd pages said. And the report is really helpful in saying that the resolutions to proceed with the amendments were passed by the shareholders at the AGM, and we're not a shareholder, we're a guarantor, so we have no right to alter any of this, and we must comply with the changes and approve the revised documentation if we wish to continue to borrow from the LGFA. So yeah, I support it.
Thank you very much, and that's a helpful comment. Thank you, and congratulations. 547 pages, bless my soul. Councillor Tepanier.
Kia ora. It took forever to download, and then I glazed through it and didn't really understand most of it. So I'm just happy to go with the report and what's there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Vucic.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Stratford. Summarised it very well, and we have to really go with it. But we've also got two councillors that we're signing it beside it, and if they can make comments if they so wish.
I should sign it. I read it.
Yes, you certainly will be one of those who do, Kelly. Can we come to the community board chairs? Chair Edmonds.
No comment.
Chair Ward.
No, no comment, thank you.
Thank you. Chair Gardner.
No comment, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Just so that everybody does know, I'm also going to say I didn't read every word of the 547, but I did take advice from a number of people, and I'm satisfied that the resolution we're passing here is appropriate for our residents and ratepayers. So thank you for that. Now, can we go, Sean, to you or to Will or to Janice to make any further comment they might wish to do?
Thanks, Your Worship. It's a good exercise and a good example and exercise in governance, this, isn't it? If this board, if this council was the board on DHB, and groups like this are exactly what DHB boards look like, and we were buying a machine for a cardiothoracic surgeon, we wouldn't necessarily need the cardiothoracic surgeon to describe the intimate detail of the machine or their surgical processes. We'd be making sure we understand what the concepts are and understanding that we've got good talent management and the right specialists in place with the right qualifications. So in this case, I recommend to governance that all you need to understand is that the local government financing agency is a bank. It doesn't have a building on a main street with a sign on it, but it is effectively a sector bank that is able to borrow internationally on special conditions and to lend out to the local government sector on special conditions, including a significant discount on what we would be paying for interest if we were to go to a retail bank. So it sets rules that we operate and trade within, and what this paper amounts to is a resetting of the rules. We simply just have to make sure that the rule changes are reflected in the way we conduct our own business, and we've got specialists like Janice under the talent management of people like Will to make sure that you've got a trustworthy document in front of you. I'll hand over to Will.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Sean. I have read not all of it, but most of it. But much more importantly, we have to use Councillor Court's phrase. We have a guru who has pored over every single word of it. Sean and I have had a briefing from Janice, and I'm satisfied that the document is very much in the council's interest and is in exactly the way that Sean has described it. If members do want any detailed information, Janice is the person to ask, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Will. Does Janice want to make any comment?
No additional comment at this time, Your Worship. Councillor Stratford summed it up very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, with those comments then, I will ask us to vote, and I'll start with Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favour.
Councillor Vucic.
Yes.
Councillor Tepanier.
In favour.
Councillor Stratford.
Aye.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Radich.
Aye.
Councillor Foy.
Aye.
Councillor Collard.
Yeah, aye.
Councillor Clendon.
In favour.
And I'm also in favour, so the motion is carried. Thank you all very much for that discussion. We now come to item 6.4, the ground lease at Matai Bay, Kari Fire and Emergency. I'm wanting to move this because I have had some involvement working with various parties that are involved in this, and we do need to see if it's possible for us to get this in place. So I will move. Do I have a seconder for this, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Vucic. Sean, I assume that Rob Coops is not with us.
I can help there, Your Worship, if I may, Sean.
Yes,
Rob's had connectivity problems this morning. If there's any detailed questions, Janice would be able to call him, but he couldn't connect with us from a technical perspective this morning.
And I know that the community board have been involved in this as well. So Adele, is there any comments that you would want to make? Adele Gardner.
Yes, our community board supports this because it's come to the next level. So you people are it needs to be approved so that we can do the we're appointed to hear the submissions, so it'll go out for consultation anyway, and so that's the process in this, and then it'll all come back to us again eventually once the submissions are heard and it goes up to the council again. So this is just the process, but we do support this wholeheartedly. So we definitely need a new fire station out there, and I mean, it's a restricted area, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vucic is seconded. Do you wish to make any comment?
I'll only add that facilities out there, or new facilities out there, would be would be very critical. There's a lot of fuel that we in the north grow, and as you know, with the dry conditions and potentially future dry conditions, we need good, rural fire capable solutions out there. I know it's bins, and it's good to see them being involved. And also realising that it's going out for consultation, and I'm hoping that that will give us good feedback in terms of how the public perceive it. So I'm supporting it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an item that I enjoyed reading so much I read it twice. There's a lot of merit in the proposal. I was quite excited by it. I'm mindful that Karakari Peninsula sits in a different fire zone to where I live, so the need perhaps there is higher. And I do recognise that it's been through the Te Huku Community Board, and I have absolute respect for that process. And I'm also mindful that it's going out for public consultation, and I have a lot of respect for that process too. So I'm very comfortable with the report, and just would like to congratulate Rob Coops. I know he's not on the line, for what I felt was a particularly great report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Court. Councillor Clendon.
Yes, entirely support. I mean, we've seen some fairly serious fires on the peninsula in recent times, and to have these folk operating out of a double garage is not desirable. So I'd be very keen to see us do whatever we can as a council to facilitate that reclassification and to get the project moving.
Thank you very much. Councillor Collard.
Certainly, I support it as well. It's just a huge growth area out there. Anybody that travels through that area would notice, especially in the summertime, how dry it gets. So anything that enhances the facilities that are available, I think is well with the merit, and I would anticipate that submissions will be very much in support of it.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Dave. Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know if there's much more I can add. I look forward to receiving any submissions, provided, and I agree with Councillor Collard that I'm sure that most, if not all, will be in support. However, I'm on the community board, and I'd like to hear those in person. Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radich.
Support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really just want to acknowledge that this is a great example of partnership between our territorial authority and our Crown partners. I'd also like to acknowledge the sentimental value that this has to me. As a baby, this building was a home away from home, and my dad has disclosed that he's sad to see it go, but acknowledged that there is a really great need, and it's fantastic to see us responding to that.
Great. Okay. Thank you for those comments. Councillor Stratford.
Yeah, fully support.
Thank you. Councillor Tepanier.
In support, thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair Mike Edmonds.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Firstly, I note that the reference to the Reserves Act 1997 is liberally spread throughout this document. Is it the Reserves Act 1997 or the Reserves Act 1977 is my first question. And the second question is, how many reserves do we have that are unclassified across the? I mean, that's a tangential question, but it's one I'd like to know or like to get onto. How many? If we're required to classify reserves, how many are there unclassified across the district?
Okay, Will, are you able to respond, or can we get that information back to Mike at our next council meeting?
Take it offline, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
We may actually have an answer in the room. Will, just stand by. George.
Right, so the answer is 1977, the Act for the Reserve Act, in answer to that question. And generally, all our reserves at this stage have been classified either as recreation, local purposes, or different types of reserves, scenic reserves or scientific reserves. That's a requirement in terms of the Reserves Act. So I don't think there's actually any at this stage that have not been qualified or classified, whereas an Esplanade Reserve.
And we have a total of 800 reserves in our district. Thanks, George. Thanks, Will.
Thank you, George. Thank
you. Okay, so you'll just
Mike.
change the motion there to 1977?
Yes, that will be changed.
Yep. Yes, thank you, Mike. And Mike, if any further comment?
No.
Okay. To the movement, I certainly agree with the change to 77. John, are you happy with that change?
Yes, and thank Mike for noticing it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Chairman Ward?
Yes, I think this is a fantastic new facility that will actually create another community hub, and I was particularly thrilled by the new meeting facilities that I think would enhance the vibrancy and connectivity within the community.
Okay. Thank you all for those comments. I will now put it to the vote and ask the Councillor Vucic, has he seconded it, to vote first, please?
I support it. Aye.
Councillor Court?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favour.
Councillor Clendon?
Aye.
Councillor Collard?
I'm in favour.
Councillor Foy?
In favour. Thank you.
Councillor Radich?
Aye.
Councillor Smith?
Aye.
Councillor Stratford?
Aye.
Councillor Tepanier?
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and I'm in favour. So the motion is carried. Thank you all very much. We will now move on to item 6.5, merging risk freshwater resilience. And the recommendation approves the addition of the freshwater resilience risk on operational top risk dashboard. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'm happy to move it, Mr.
Councillor Vucic, thank you, and a seconder.
I'm happy to second this.
Kelly.
Yes.
Oh.
Now I don't know which one of you to take. There were two. Shall we take Moku Kelly? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll let him have that one.
Thank you, Kelly.
Right. In which case, Councillor Vucic or Councillor Tepanier, do either of you wish to comment?
I will probably comment first. I think, look, it's really a no-brainer. It's something I did push for to get this on our risk register. With that current drought we actually experience, I think it would be silly to say no. So I don't think any more needs to be said. If you read the report, you can see there's certainly a lot of work that we need to do. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tepanier?
No, just along the same lines as Councillor Vucic. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Court?
I'm fully in support of this paper and another excellent paper written by Tanya Reid. I've got no additional comment at this time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Clendon?
Yes, I agree. It's sort of odd. It hasn't been there for some time, but now's better than not, so it's good.
Thank you. Councillor Collard?
Yeah, no, I certainly support it, and the resilience of fresh water throughout the whole region is just so important. We've had that demonstrated more than ever this season.
Thank you. Councillor Foy?
Thank you, Worship. Great paper, Tanya Reid, and I just wanted to highlight something they've already talked about today, and that's sufficiently resourcing our infrastructure department to move from being reactive to being proactive and doing our forward planning so that we are up to speed for everything that we need to do, like the NES for fresh water that we know is a requirement for our council, and also doing our forward consultation with our iwi, which we know is a requirement for all of our resource consents, particularly our wastewater system. So I look forward to further discussions around resourcing of our infrastructure department to allow for doing that appropriate forward planning.
Thank you very much for those comments. Councillor Radich?
Yes, we certainly had some problems with our freshwater resilience, that's for sure. But no, I'm supportive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to speak in support of Councillor Foy's comments. We have learned very quickly that resourcing is key to ensuring that we can do the doing. So I'd really like to commend this paper. It's a great step towards ensuring that we're achieving our organisational values. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stratford?
Yes, I do support this. I do want to highlight though that climate change and water was in the #1 on the risk register. It wasn't forgotten, it just wasn't given enough focus on its own. So it's great to see it have its own, what's it called? Own field on the risk dashboard. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Edmonds?
No comment.
Chair Gardner?
No comment, just thrilled to see that it's on the dashboard at last. Thank you.
Chair Ward?
No, support, Your Worship.
Thank you. Sean, have you or the staff got any additional comments they wish to make?
No further comments from me, Your Worship. Staff comment?
If I could just, thank you, Your Worship, if I could just publicly thank Tanya Reid. Tanya's been standing in since Matt Bell left for the last 5 months as the acting manager. She's done an outstanding job, Your Worship and members, and this report is just but one example of that.
Thank you for those comments, and we just acknowledge the work Tanya's done, so thank you very much. Okay, I intend to put the resolution to the vote. Councillor Vucic?
Aye.
Councillor Tepanier?
Well, thank you.
Councillor Court?
I'm in favour, thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Stratford?
Aye.
Councillor Smith?
Aye.
Councillor Radich? Hello, Matty. Thank you.
Yeah,
Councillor Foy?
Yes.
Councillor Collard?
Aye.
Councillor Clendon?
Aye.
And it's me at the top. I'm in favour. So that's carried. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate that very much. So we now move on to the district item 6.6, climate change. And thank you very much. Rachel has given us notice of an amendment she intends to put. And I know she's done a significant amount of work and had discussions with other elected members, and appreciate that, Rachel. Thank you. Can I, just so we can get this started, I intend to move the recommendation, and if I can get a seconder for it, and then unless there's anybody wants to make comment, I'll ask Rachel to move her amendment. So Kelly, thank you very much. So it's moved and seconded. Rachel, unless somebody's got something urgent they wish to add into the resolution as it is at the minute, I'll ask you, Rachel, to put your resolution now, your amendment, I beg your pardon. I did send it out to everybody last night, and I'm just trying to dig it up here.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand that Democracy Services have got a copy there ready to put up on the screen.
Thank you. If we could do that when we're ready, please. Who's doing that, Melina? Is that you, Aisha? Who's Casey? Who's doing that for us? There we go. I know.
Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I also request that all elected members are muted as per standing orders through this process?
Right. Yep.
And just one further, I would ask that the word homes in the final point be amended to property to reflect that we will also have assets and infrastructure that are at risk.
Okay.
So thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to speak to this amendment now, and in the interest of reflecting how important this is.
Just before you do, can we just get a seconder for the proposed amendment, please?
All right, I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Okay, now the floor is open, Kelly, Rachel, for your comment, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ka mua, ka muri. This whakatauki was gifted to me by one of our rangatahi while we engaged over this document that we are considering in front of us today. This whakatauki means walking backwards into the future and reminds us of the idea that we should look to the past to inform where we are going. When I asked our Youth Council earlier this week how important it was that their council invests in mitigating and adapting to the effects of climate change, their answer was clear. A solid 10, without a doubt. Today, we sit here as leaders of our district and victims of what I often hear referred to as decision-making constipation. The inability to make a decision simply because the decision won't ever please everyone. In front of us today, we have the opportunity to change the narrative, to consider the big picture, to invest in learning, and to show our communities that their future is our priority. Our Youth Council have reminded me just that. It is their future. I want to commend the work that Daryl, Roger, Chris and their team have put into this incredibly important piece of work. And Sean, I'd also like to thank your staff for supporting elected members in the formation of this resolution. We are in unprecedented times, and I appreciate the agility needed to respond to our short turnaround meeting cycle. This roadmap is brave, it is data-driven, it is measurable, and it is digestible. But as with every piece of work, it is only worth the paper it is written on unless it is resourced. As governance, it is our role to ensure that our administration are geared to succeed in the strategic direction that we set by putting resourcing and measurement in place. It is also our role to ensure that we give them the steer that sets the oversight expectations and indicates how we see our strategic documents evolving and adapting in time. Council mark assessments made in the past have encouraged a transition from planning-centric and into the doing. This document provides us as governance the opportunity to ensure that our planning is forward-facing, informed and robust. By resourcing the implementation to its potential, as governance, we will lead this district into tomorrow with our eyes wide open. It also gives the officers of this organisation the clear understanding of our expectations and what our priorities are to execute and deliver on the strategic outputs that we set. The return on investment here is not to be underestimated. Climate change has been identified as the #1 risk for our organisation and for our communities. This financial commitment that I'm asking you to make today is an incredibly small piece of the pie when you consider what the implications to our district may be if we choose not to invest. We have been given the opportunity to consider and address the decisions made for our district in the past. We have been given a second chance, and statistically, they don't come around often. Our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, they may not be so lucky, and I ask that you pay respect to this opportunity that sits here in front of us. This resolution has been informed in total by the roadmap, including the costs and resourcing suggestions, and the suggested $125,000 that you see in this resolution is a reduction of the indicated amounts, as some of the work has already been completed. Now is the time for us to be brave, to stick our necks out, and to stand up for the future of our district. Central government have clearly told us that we need to get active in the way we consider and mitigate the effects of climate change. By deferring this investment today, we are simply building the bow wave of expense for tomorrow. Climate change is real, it is here, and it is not going away. Let's take the opportunity in front of us, learn from yesterday, and ensure the best chance at tomorrow. Ka mua, ka mori. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Rachel, and I've got to say, well prepared and well presented. Councillor Vucic has seconded to the amendment. Have you got comment, please?
I got one comment, and that is why I support it is we do need clarity in how we implement climate change. Climate change is one of those words that's, strictly speaking, a little bit meaningless on its own. And how we work it out, we need to do that. We need finances for that, and every body and every little community needs to play its part in all of that. So that's why I'm supporting it, because we are looking at going forward and how we actually action that. And I also might add, in doing that, we need to look and be mindful of, one, our finances and resources, our capabilities, and I think we're in a really good place, and as well as the other priorities that we're facing, like the previous item, freshwater resilience. So put all that together, there's a fair bit of work to do here. And I'd like to actually start that work as soon as possible, and that needs financing. So that's why I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vucic. So I will ask Councillor Court, have you got comment? I will ask everybody to make comment if they wish. Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. And first off, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible amount of effort that Councillor Smith has put in to her role as the chair of the Strategy Committee and in putting the amended resolution before us today. She did engage with me via email, so I have had prior visibility of this, so I sincerely appreciate that opportunity. I think everything that she's put there from A to F resonates with me. I am particularly pleased to see consultation included in there. That will be a critical part of what we do moving forward. I note that this is a significant departure from the staff recommendation. So I don't wish to commit at this point, but I would like to hear from Daryl and Sean before I get to vote, so they can offer me their flavour on conditions A to F. That will help inform my decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cord. Councillor Clendon.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, I'm wholly in support of adopting this document. Just to some of the background, of course, the Council has acknowledged already, as it states in the document, that climate change is our #1 risk. It's a risk to our infrastructure, it's a risk to our physical environment, and it's absolutely a risk to our communities in terms of health and safety and their well-being in the future. This document has in part emerged from a survey of our senior managers, and I'm pleased to see a quote from that survey of managers seeking the climate change as centre of all our planning moving forward. I do think it's that critical that we use that climate lens for all of our strategic decision making. There is cost involved in this clearly, but anywhere and everywhere you'll see commentary that the most expensive action is to do nothing or to simply truck on with business as usual. Councillor Foy's comments about being proactive rather than reactive. If we simply wait for the storm to hit and then clean up the damage, that's always going to be a more expensive option than getting ahead of the game and implementing some sensible strategies and action to protect ourselves effectively. I like to lay out the 4 sectors of the challenge. The first focus being on the council leading by example. I believe as a council we are seriously behind many others, both in the public and private sector, in terms of our actions, and I think we can do a great deal better, and I think we can do that quite quickly and initially at low cost or no cost, simply by affecting behaviour change within our organisation. I've done this, I've been involved in this with other organisations, and we can affect useful savings in terms of reducing emissions and so on at no cost or low cost before we have to invest to the next steps. So I'm entirely in support of it. Just as an aside, I was in a meeting last night with representatives from 3 community groups. The only critique any of them had of this document was that it wasn't going far enough, fast enough. So I did stress to them this is a really good, strong foundation for us to build on and to get some action in the future. So yes, I'm entirely in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clendon. Councillor Collard.
So certainly, I support this. Climate change has been a contentious issue, and we've just got to look at our probably ancient history, but we've gone through climate change before, and it's been forever evolving. You only got to look back as far as the Ice Age. That's a complete climate change. But here we have an opportunity, perhaps, to influence the speed of climate change and what happens within the bounds of that climate change. And probably the biggest thing that we could do that would have the biggest impact is to do nothing, and it just happen on its own quicker and quicker all the time. So I support this big time. It is a risk that needs to be acknowledged and acted on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collard. Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Worship. I have one question before I'd also like to speak to this. My question relates to B and the financial cost, and maybe the staff will be able to respond to this when they speak to it. Daryl, it states in B, allocate 125,000 for climate change in the annual plan. And then further to that, it says permanent employment of a sustainability program manager. So my question is 125,000 for the sustainability program manager or in addition to that cost? Therefore, in terms of operational cost and therefore rating cost to our ratepayers, is that more than 125,000? Is it 250,000? I don't know. If I can have the answer to that question initially first, please.
Is anyone able to make a quick comment? Because otherwise.
Yeah, as laid out in the action plan at the back of the climate change roadmap, these numbers are directly correlated to those numbers in the back of the plan. It's $125,000 to do the work. The FTE would be on top of that. We need a body to do the work.
Okay, thank you for that.
If I could ask, Your Worship, because this was first exposure to the amendment. Where's the 125, Daryl? On the charts which we're looking at the moment in the papers.
So the 125, you have to look through the action plan pages, which is 1 through 6. It's actually 1 through 5. There's 5 pages of misnumbering in there, but if you look through the items that are ticked for the years of 2020/2021 for that financial year, if you add those numbers up, you get to 165,000. Now we've actually managed to absorb some of that work in developing the roadmap, which removes $40,000. So the first line item, which is the climate, I think it's the carbon footprint piece, we've actually managed to absorb that into this year's budget. So that's no longer included. So we're left with 125,000 for the next financial year.
Thank you.
Okay, Felicity.
Yeah, and sorry, the cost of the sustainability program manager, that will also be added to the cost of the operational cost for the next annual plan as well?
Correct. Without somebody to do the work, there's no capacity to do it.
Yeah, but you haven't given a figure around that.
Correct. There is no figure around that.
May I just comment here, Your Worship? I mean no disrespect to the conversation, but good governance would look like sending the CEO to do an assessment on, come back with a recommendation on what we need to resource the plan. The topic today is to get the strategy through first. Look, there are lots of ways that we could fund this, lots of different ways that we could staff this, and I do deeply respect Councillor Smith's intent here. You may, I wouldn't be averse to getting an extra 125,000 chucked at and making this work, but I would appreciate the space to think about our staffing situation, which I've been particularly strident on trying to avoid the growth of council by increments, and I wouldn't mind a look at that. But in general, if you send me away to come back with a resourcing plan on any strategy, we'll put more work into it than currently sits in front of us.
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to...
Your Worship, could I just respond to that, please?
Yep, you can just in a minute, Rachel. We're starting to get into bits and pieces. So, Rachel, I'll let you comment just on that point, and then I'm going to go back to Felicity.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Sean, I appreciate your points and I definitely acknowledge them. The thing that I really enjoyed about the reading of this strategy is that it clearly identified what it was that the organisation needed to ensure that this strategy was successful, which I feel is something that has potentially been missing from some of the pieces of work in the past. So my intention with this resolution was to support the recommendations within the strategy report. I do recognise that we are in unprecedented times, especially with looking to cut costs and things, and I will look to you for your guidance on that, but I am mindful that the report does identify that it requires an FTE, and I'm also mindful that we are currently behind on delivering FN 2100, the district plan, which governments have indicated have strong priority. So I would hate to see this sit on a shelf for a year in the interests of progressing it forward to ensure that we can go into the long-term plan as informed as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Felicity, can you finish your comments, please?
Oh, thank you, Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that I do want to know financially what this will be in light of doing our financial planning for this annual plan. Also, I wanted to highlight that it's great that this motion does include exactly what David has raised, Councillor Clendon, about moving from reactive to proactive. We've known about the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement since 2010, which highlights that we need to move to a managed retreat. And in our district of a long, skinny peninsula with coasts on both sides and huge areas of flood zone, that is going to be extreme for our district. I do agree we need to resource it appropriately, but I also agree with what our CEO, Sean, has raised, that we need to look at our organisation as a whole and the areas of risk that we need to resource. So I think that this is one of the key areas of risk that we do need to resource appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felicity. Appreciate that. Can we come to Councillor Radich, please?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Rachel, 125,000 for a roadmap is not a small piece of a pie. That's a lot of ratepayers' money. Dave Clinton, you made the comment that climate change is a risk. Well, I differ on that. And it is, as Dave Collard said, it is a contentious issue, climate change. It certainly has wrecked a few farmers, that's for sure. But no, when it comes to climate change, we all get carried away. It's unbelievable. But no, I'm not happy with this 125,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radich. Councillor Stratford, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes. Where am I? So I do support the amendment, and I commend the staff for the climate change adaptation plan. And I just wanted to go through and highlight, you know, yes, there's other risks, but climate change is our #1 risk. It's also been identified as the world's #1 risk. Whilst COVID-19 and climate change are both impacting on us at the moment, there are still efforts going on to mitigate climate change and adaptation, and both are enormous issues. But the thing with climate change is that it's going to have catastrophic impacts, you know, later, that will play out slowly for generations to come. And the amount of money that we're putting towards addressing climate change, so we're not just going to adopt a plan that does nothing. We're going to adopt a plan with some doing in it, and that's why I'm supporting the amendment. A baseline carbon footprint produced has already been absorbed into the current budget. Developing initial carbon footprint reduction program, we need to know how we can do that, so that money needs to be spent. The other items that are in the roadmap that the money's going towards are actually things that we have to do, dictated by the Zero Carbon Bill at Parliament. And so we were going to have to allocate that funding anyway. Climate change policies and strategies, it's all stuff that, you know, happens in the background, but we've got to prioritise this by allocating budget towards it and reducing our amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere is where we start. We need to be leaders in this space, as I said yesterday, and we need to respond on the ground in our communities, and it starts with us as a council. So this is why I support this plan, and I again commend the staff for the work on this. I was really excited to read it, and thank you, Rachel, for that. There was a really well thought out address on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stratford. Councillor Tepanier.
I'm supportive of the amendment and of this roadmap. I apologise, I forgot to send this through, but there's just some macrons omitted on page 577, but I've emailed that through to governance if they can forward that on. Just the importance of those and changing the meanings on our expectations. It sounds pretty funny where one of them without a macron now means to eat the benefits rather than to have benefits for our home. So if we could get those tidied up there, otherwise I really appreciate that our first focus area is sweeping our own marae in the first instance. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Moho. Can we ask Chair Belinda Ward to make comment, please? Hello, Belinda.
Are you there? Can you hear? Yeah, hello. Sorry, I'm having a few connectivity issues here. Yes, I do support this. I don't think a substantial amount of money. I think it's a matter of staff and resourcing. Like most things, I think the sooner we actually start on this, the cheaper it will be moving forward for the ratepayer and for the council. We need to, I found the 4 boxes really, really helpful. I think we, as a council, need to reduce our risk by acting sooner rather than later. There's a legal liability and responsibility with council, and we're not quite sure how that's going to play out from an insurance perspective and a district plan and 2100 perspective. But I think we need to act sooner rather than later, and I think hats off to you, Rachel, and those involved in putting this amendment together. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Gardner.
Yes, I absolutely support this piece of work, and it's great to see that at long last we've got this piece of work in front of us. And thank you to the staff that put this document together. It's fantastic. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Adele. Chair Mike.
Thanks, John. I'd like to contrast this climate change action with the action that we took for COVID. I mean, at a 2% death rate, this would have killed 100,000 people in New Zealand versus everybody in New Zealand if we don't deal with this climate change. And here we are bemoaning a small amount of money to get this started. So look, I'm all for getting this started because I think that as people have been saying, this is a big thing. So we took a huge action with COVID. We need to be taking a huge action with climate change. However, I am a bit disappointed in the rhetoric out in the public arena. It's some of it is illogical, some of it is some of it's illogical and unreasonable. So as long as this money is spent in a direction that can bring us the best scientific thinking and that is justifiable and reasonable and logical. And I think by putting this money in, we're more likely to get that response rather than just listening and responding to emotive arguments from the public. So I'm all for this, maybe not enough, but we've got to start somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Sean, can I come to you and the staff to respond, please?
Nothing further from me, Your Worship.
Has Daryl got anything further he wishes to add in?
No, not unless there's any questions.
Okay. All right, I'll just make comment and then we will go to the vote. I support this, and I say again, Rachel, thank you for the work that you've done on it. The only concern I have is I'm still uncertain as to what we're committing the ratepayers to from a financial perspective. And that concerns me. I am well aware of the issues in regard to climate change. In fact, what's fascinating with the COVID situation, of course, is that all of a sudden our pollution has dropped dramatically. One of the things that also fascinates me with people when they're discussing climate change is that they never, ever, I haven't heard, I may be wrong, ever discuss the fact of a human growing population. And that's an issue where no one seems to want to tackle. But actually that's part of the main cause of our pollution, is because of our population density. And we can do a whole lot of things in my view, but until we address that as well, then we're going to struggle with containing the issue. What worries me, as I say, coming back to us, is what does this mean for us financially? Next meeting, we're going to be making decisions around what our rate level will be, so that we can then pass the final resolution in June. And I'm keen to have a full understanding, because I think, unless Rachel corrects me, I think we're talking about far more than just $125,000, and I'm not certain that that we have enough knowledge to actually pass this amendment today. And I'm wondering whether it's possible for us to get advice, because I appreciate, Rachel, why you've moved with urgency on this, is that you want to, if we pass it, if the majority, and it sounds like they will include it in our annual plan. I'm wondering whether there's a possibility of us getting enough information for our next meeting on the 25th, I think it is, whenever our next council meeting is, so that we can have a full understanding of the financial implications, and whether the council, whether you, Rachel, would be willing to let this lie on the table until our next meeting when we can confirm it, because I think we will. But having more information from Sean and from Daryl and the staff on the financial implications of it.
Your
I'm just
Worship,
wondering whether Sean or Daryl, and then I'll come to you, I think it was Kelly, I'm not sure whoever it was.
Yeah, as the seconder of the
might
original
be able
motion.
to, Sean or Daryl might be able to comment on the financial implications.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I completely support what you've just suggested, and I completely support the intent behind Councillor Smith's proposal here. There are pressures right through our organisation. At the moment, I'm thinking we need, and I know I would get support portfolio by portfolio and committee by committee for a couple of extra communicators. It may even be Councillor Smith who would support that idea for our communications team. At the moment, we've got a suggestion from Councillor Foy for several additions to the IAMS team, which I'm resisting, because we're trying not to be a fat council. We've done pretty well so far, but she puts a very seductive argument that with the huge number of macroeconomic stimuli in terms of infrastructure projects coming to our district, we need to gun up with the capacity to handle that extra finance coming into our district. I'm trying to give examples of section by section. Yes, I think everyone is correct. Section by section, if you look through a drinking straw at our organisation, you would allocate $125,000 there and a staff member here and another staff member there. But I would plead with governance to give me the direction to go and do what Mayor Johns just suggested, that is, look at the resource implications in context with all the other things that you want to do, and to bring a coherent recommendation back, rather than risk getting in a routine of growing our council's imposition on ratepayer increment by increment. Can I just go back by saying I disagree with nothing here. This is actually a really good report, not just one that's adequate to the purpose. Daryl's team have done exceptionally well. It's a good read, and there's a couple of points in it that I would have raised but won't here, but they would basically just be to get elected members to focus on some of the key implications for us going forward. There's plenty of time for that conversation, but I just go back to the point that this is a really nice piece of work. I'm concerned only with making premature decisions about the second obvious question is, if you approve the strategy, now what do we do to operationalise it? I'd like some space to bring you some recommendations.
Mr. Mayor, could I make just a brief comment as portfolio holder?
David, yeah, you can, but just in a minute, can I just ask Daryl if he's got any comment? And then I'll come to you, and then I think, was it Kelly or Rachel wanted to comment? I heard a female voice.
It was Kelly. I'm happy to wait.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. If we can just take Daryl, David, and then I'll come to you, please.
Okay, thank you.
Daryl's got any comment to make?
No real comment, to be perfectly honest. The report, the roadmap clearly articulates where that money is needed. It clearly articulates that we, as an organisation, need to have somebody that does this work. It is our number one risk, and at the moment we don't have anybody that's focused on this work at all. It does identify that a resource is needed, but however governance wants to address that is fine by me.
Thank you, Councillor Clendon, and then Councillor Stratford.
Yeah, thank you. I acknowledge, we have to focus on costs, but I think we also have to bear in mind that the document identifies the various sources of greenhouse gas emissions. 3 of those are road transport, electricity and waste. There are significant opportunity within this program to save money for the council. Have we ever done a serious audit of our fuel use in council vehicles? Have we identified the efficiency down to a single vehicle level? Are our vehicles being driven with fuel efficiency in mind? Do we have a really good waste management program within the organisation? Do we manage electricity carefully? Are all the monitors switched off at night? I mean, these are all simple examples, but I absolutely believe that if we do this job well and reduce council emissions, we will also be reducing operational cost. So let's not forget that there's a positive side of the equation as well. Just briefly, in terms of having a sustainability manager, I've been involved in a number of change management projects with companies large and small. 2 things you must have is buy-in from senior management, and you need a champion for the project. And without that, it'll be a great deal more difficult. I mean, I acknowledge our CEO's point of view. He is ultimately responsible for staff in the organisation, but I do think the project will not succeed as well as it needs to if we don't have that champion on the ground. And a lot of that person's work will actually be education, bringing people on side, explaining to them. You can order people to do things, but it's much better if they understand the need to do something. So it is a serious sort of an education program, and I do think that it won't succeed if we don't, or won't succeed as well as it ought or need to, if we don't have that dedicated manager to be the champion for the project. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clendon. Councillor Stratford, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just, Daryl pointed out the costings. That's what I was going to allude to, and I went through it on page 581 in the report. It specifically goes through some indicative costs, and we need to adopt this today, even if we need to compromise on something. This needs to be adopted today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your Worship, can I have my right of reply, please?
Yes, you can. By all means, I was going to come to you now, Rachel. Your right of reply.
Your Worship, it's Anne Court here. I did text you asking for speaking rights.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Anne. Did you? I missed your text. So, Anne, please.
Because my initial...
just got it now.
My initial comments were prefaced that I wanted to hear back from Daryl Sargent and the Chief Executive. And I'm incredibly mindful, and my colleagues will have heard me say this often, that the Local Government Act dedicates at its purpose that governance is responsible for decision making. And what we're saying today is that the Far North District Council Climate Road Change Roadmap is something that we wish to advance. What sits outside our functions is telling the Chief Executive how to do that. And so I'm a little bit uncomfortable now that I've heard all the conversation with Condition B. And I'm enormously sympathetic to the argument that the Chief Executive has put forward, in that he's asked for some time to come back to us. And we do have time. I disagree with Councillor Stratford's comments that this has to be adopted today. I'm mindful that adoption of the annual plan does not occur for another month. So we've got time for the chief executive to take this matter away. This could lie on the table. It could come back to us at the next council meeting, bearing in mind that he's got a very strong message that we want to adopt the roadmap and we want you to give meaningful effect to that. And he can then come back to us and demonstrate how he can give meaningful effect to that and what it will cost. Because I've heard from Daryl that the $125,000 doesn't include the cost of a sustainability program manager. So I'm mindful that by sitting here today saying $125,000, we might be underselling this. We might be overselling this, I don't know. So I just want to get back to my opening statement that it is for the chief executive to hear the message from us that we want action on this. It is then for him to tell us how he does that. So I'm just a little bit uncomfortable that perhaps condition B has gone a step too far. And if I don't want to defeat it, I don't want to vote against it. So I'm thinking the best thing to do at the moment, and I appreciate Rachel has your right of reply, is to let the matter lie on the table and come back to us in 2 weeks at our next council meeting, and we can make a decision. Nothing will be lost by waiting 14 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Court. And Rachel, I will ask you to make comment, but I was going to, thank you for that. I was going to actually take advice on whether it's possible for us to pass A, C, D, E and F and leave B lie on the table for a fortnight and ask the Chief Executive to come back and give us advice at our next meeting. Now, I need advice on whether that can be done, and obviously then it will depend on what the views of other councillors are. I need advice now from a governance team, please, on how we go about that. Rachel, do I move an amendment or do we have to vote the amendment down and then put it all again? I support what you're trying to do here, Rachel, so I want that clear and I want councillors to understand that. It's just the issue of the finances that worry me, and I want some more advice on it before I'm comfortable for us to proceed just on that part. The rest of it is, I think it's fantastic. So I'm like Anne, would be happy to see B lie on the table for another fortnight. We will have time to consider it before we get into our annual plan and our deliberations, etc., around the rates. And so I need advice on how do we now make that happen. I'm conscious of the fact we've got an amendment on the table, and so my understanding is that we need to put the amendment and either it's voted for or voted against. I don't want to vote against all of it, but if the only way that I can get some reporting on B is to vote against it, then that's what I would have to do, and I don't want to do that. Is it possible somehow that we, and I'm conscious of the fact we've got an amendment on the table, can we move that an amendment that B lie on the table for a fortnight? Is that a possibility, Aisha? Or somebody can give us advice on that or not? Can we do that or not?
Through you, Your Worship, with the Chief Executive's approval, I mean, the most obvious route would be if the mover of the amendment, in light of the discussions which have just taken place, would agree to either of the options that you put forward, either that the matter lie on the table for another 2 weeks, or that she would be happy to take B out. Would that be the first port of call?
So,
Your Worship, I'm happy to address at this point if you're happy
that'd be
with
lovely.
that.
Thank you. That'd be lovely, Rachel. I appreciate that very much.
I think I'm completely sympathetic to what everyone is saying, and I think perhaps a suggestion would be to, as opposed to remove B, split B so that it only reads for year 1, and then create a G requesting that the CEO report back to us on the financial implications of a permanent employment. The thing that I would really like to highlight in this resolution, however, is that there is no word additional included in this B, and I see this resolution as both a signal to our CEO that this is an operational priority for governance, and also an invitation to consider being innovative in the way that you utilise your operational expenditure. I saw a really great opportunity in this timing that we will be deliberating on the annual plan, and part of that will be the operational expenditure and how that is considered in our rating increase for the year going forward. So I did see this as an opportunity to reconsider that, or to consider that additionally here. However, in the interest of getting the resolution across the line, if so need be, I would be happy with creating a G and direct the CEO to report back to us with the financial implications.
So the 125 would still stay in though?
Your Worship, I see the $125,000 being included in the annual plan, and ensuring that staff have time to incorporate that as key to this resolution.
And so you wouldn't accept that we could leave it lie for a fortnight while we ask the staff, this Chief Executive, to report back to us?
I would be happy for Councillor Vucic to speak to that, but as the mover, I would prefer that we put it to the vote at this point.
Okay, can we ask Councillor Vucic to make comment, please, on B?
Yeah, well, as a seconder, I would, as I said, we could deal with this in parts, which would probably be the right process. But I'm happy for B to be left to lie on the table, if we can do it that way, waiting for Sean to respond. Councillor Court's comments were valid, good comments. So we can deal with it that way. We still have that time for the following month to look at the costing. We can't progress without some money allocated to it. So I would assume that Sean would come back with some costing to allow us to get legs onto this process. So I'm happy to drop B, essentially. Adding another item when it's already on the table, I'm not sure if that's the right, we can actually do that, but I'm willing to be flexible.
Okay, Councillor Smith, can you, given John's comments, can you just respond? I think, certainly I know I would be, I think Councillor Court, and I suspect one or two others would be pleased if it were possible for us to leave B lie on the table for a fortnight.
I do acknowledge the point that Councillor Court has made, that governance have firmly indicated to our CEO that this is a priority, and I would look to him for assurance that we can deal with B in timely manner prior to the annual plan to ensure that it is included in the process.
I can certainly assure you of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or do we need to put a date in there?
That it will be included in the annual plan would slot into the annual planning process, but I'm also hearing urgency from elected members. Yeah, I understand completely. I understand completely what the amended direction is.
I would, yes, I would like to have that B be set aside and lie on the table until our next meeting. If Rachel and John would agree to that. Sean, is that?
Can I just say, Mayor Carr?
What I can, if that were the case, if B was to decide, I mean, we can come back with an estimate of what the salaried worker would be, if indeed it's the one worker, or whether we need two, or whether we can make a rearrangement inside of council with your agreement to defer some other projects so that we've got staff power onto this. There are numerous options for us to look at. We'd come back and talk to you about what 125,000 extra means in the context of the hard work you did this week to reduce the rate increase for next year, because you know you shaved off about 600,000 and here we are chiseling 125 back on. Now that's not to say that you haven't changed your mind, it's to support that you have the power to do that, but we would bring to you a broader awareness of what this means in context. And even if you end up with exactly the same decision as Councillor Smith's put on the table, then at least it would have been by a diligent process, whereas at the moment we're caught short. So we would really appreciate it if Councillor Smith gave us grace on paragraph B, and we will expedite an answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would be willing to take advice from
Come to you, Maddie. Just hold on. Carry on, Rachel.
I'd be willing to take advice from Democracy Services as to how best to word this resolution to ensure that it's captured acknowledging that the CEO has said that he has taken clear message, and if that is to be done by best leaving B to lie on the table, again, I would look to them for advice.
Okay, can we, Maddie, I'll come to you in a minute. Can we just get that advice, please, so that we can get the technicalities of this sorted through?
Through you, your worship, I think the chief executives captured it very well there, that if the mover of the amendment, if Councillor Smith would allow B to lie on the table, I think what the chief executive is saying is that we would have the ability to fast track this to bring it back to the next council meeting. So it's not that it's going to be lying to some undisclosed date. We'd have to get our skates on because we've got a 2-weekly council cycle, but that would at least buy us some time to come up with a number of options. So if that were possible, that's the direction I think we suggest to you.
So if Councillor Smith and Councillor Vucic were to agree that B be left to lie on the table until the next meeting, that would cover all the technicalities that we need to? Is that what I'm hearing, Will?
That is correct,
Thank you. So if
I guess though, just to sorry to interrupt. So I guess the motion on the table is without the red, and you, because it is an amendment to the motion on the floor, you do need to either put that or lose it, rather than picking and choosing what comes out, unless there is agreement from the mover and the seconder to do so.
That's just what we're getting to, Aisha.
Yeah.
We're looking to see whether the mover and the seconder will agree that we move A, C, D, E, F, and forget G, take that out at the moment, and that we then have a resolution, a further amendment, that B be left to lie on the table until the next meeting when the Chief Executive reports back to us. Rachel and John, would you agree to that being done that way?
I'm in support of that, Your Worship.
Thank you.
And I'm happy.
Thank you.
Can I just
hang on, just order, please.
Yes.
Aisha, can you just do it that way, please?
So it's just been cut out and we can paste it in when this part has been put to the vote.
We need it to be, is it to be a further amendment or is it to be an addition? How I want to see it in there. I don't want to lose it. So I want it to be part of this motion, and that 125 blah 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 be left to lie on the table, and the Chief Executive be asked to report back on the financial implications, etc., at our next meeting.
Can I suggest, yeah, F, there we go, that's what I was going to say. And just change the wording.
That's right.
At the beginning.
And that's right. The Chief Executive be asked to report back on the financial implications of F at our next meeting. Right, thank you. Now, just before I ask anyone else to comment, I just need to know, Rachel and John, is that you're okay with that?
I'm in support of that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Matty wanted to make comment. Matty, it's the amendment is as it is now. Matty, do you wish to make comment?
I find this unbelievable. We've spent half an hour on this, and to let be live for another 2 weeks is not going to change anything. We all know that. This is going to go through. The majority of the councillors are all in favour of it. Just put it through.
Okay, we are going to vote.
It's unbelievable.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. We just had to get it correct. That was all, Matty.
Oh, God's sake.
Okay, thank you. All right. Rachel, do you want to make any
Mr.
final?
Mayor,
Oh,
could I
David.
just suggest that the wording should be at the next full council meeting? It doesn't currently specify which meeting.
Okay, next full council. Yes, that's fine. Yep. Can we just put the word full in there, please, Aisha? Thank you.
May I just check the feasibility of that, Your Worship? We completely get what we're being directed to do here. Just need to check the feasibility of the timeline with Will.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. I've got. I'm just doing Sean a bit of a response here. As I said, we would be very tight for time. What we could do is we've got a range of options. The Chief Executive has highlighted some of them. Our preference would be to leave this not till the next meeting, but to the one after that. But if the answer is, could we do something?
Can I just respond that if we alter anything further from where we're at, then it won't go through, and the whole thing in the original one will go through.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the answer to the Chief Executive's question is yes, we can produce a paper, but we'd like much more time than has been given. Thank you.
But I'm sorry, the council, this is the best that we can do to get this through this way.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, so with the agreement, Rachel, do you want to make any final comment?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. So now I'm going to ask people to vote, and I'm going to ask, starting with Rachel, if you would vote, please, Rachel.
Aye.
Councillor Vucic.
Aye.
Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favour of the amendment.
Councillor Clendon.
I support.
Thank you. Councillor Collard.
Yeah, I support it as it stands at the moment.
Councillor Foy.
Support.
Councillor Radich.
Against.
Councillor Stratford.
For.
Councillor Tepanier.
For, thank you.
Councillor Vucic has already voted in favour, and I'll vote in favour of the amendment. So that's carried. So that now becomes the substantive motion. And so I will ask us all to vote on it again. I'm correct, Aisha, isn't it? It's now substantial.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So can we start with Councillor Smith?
Aye.
Councillor Vucic?
Aye.
Councillor Court?
Aye.
Councillor Clendon?
Aye.
Councillor Collard?
Aye.
Councillor Foy?
Aye.
Councillor Radich?
Against.
Councillor Stratford?
Aye.
Councillor Tepanier?
For, thanks.
And I'm also for. So that motion is carried. We'll just wait until Aisha can catch up. Sorry, Aisha. You okay? Oh, sorry, Aisha. You'd let me know when you're ready to proceed.
It's not, yeah, there we go. Yes, ready.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for that. It was a useful discussion. And again, I just want to say thank you, Sean and the staff, for the work that you've done. Appreciate it very much. And Rachel, thank you for the input you've had today. And I do think we've arrived in a very good place. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that now concludes the, am I correct? Concludes the open meeting.
Your Worship, just in regard to Ross's email, I did raise that with Democracy Services some time ago, but I'm also mindful that our compliance schedule states that in the second box, state the relevant council policies, external or internal legislation or community outcomes that relate to this decision. So today, council resolved to adopt the climate change strategy. So that will automatically now become a
Go in there anyway.
compliance requirement in that schedule moving forward. I'm not sure we need a separate paper
Okay.
for that,
Good.
but I do think it needs to be articulated clearly to Ross.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll ask Sean to give me some a reply that I can respond in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That's very helpful. Thank you, Sean. I'll leave that in your hands when you can.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's anything bursting, I'll ask Moko if you would mind saying our closing prayer.
Can I just come in?
Oh,
Mayor
Matty,
Carter?
yes, of course, Matty. The floor is
Just
yours.
to ratify what I said at the start of the meeting regarding councillors getting together at least half an hour. It used to be an hour, because there are issues that are worrying me, and I'll just give you one example, a quick example, because I've got to get out of here. It'll take a whole lot of milk. It's the Whara Dam and Nakahu Trust. You know, already 200,000 has gone through legal fees. We need to stop all. We should be out of that dam. But we can only make that decision by us councillors getting together, sorting this bloody problem out. And that's only one of many. So if you can organise that, Mayor Carter, that we have at least half where we councillors can get together and sort out these problems.
Yep. Happy to do that, Matty. I'm just going to send you an email, all of you in their email now, with a suggested time and date. I'll talk with and we'll organise something that we can just have a council discussion, just a yap amongst ourselves.
Can I just remind everybody that we've got the audit, risk and finance workshop tomorrow and the regulatory and compliance workshop tomorrow. Don't forget.
Yeah, I was going to advertise that as well. Thanks. And everybody is invited, not just the members, because we've got a social procurement at the beginning. So if those that aren't members wish to leave, come along and watch that presentation from Caroline.
Okay.
Your Worship, can I just make a quick note, please?
Yes, of course, Rachel.
Just a reminder, following comments that we've had from the public after the last council video went out, that all sound that you make while you're not on mute is recorded and publicly available. So please ensure that if you're not intending on speaking, to keep it on mute. Thank you.
Well done, Rachel.
All right.
As
the
I
breathing
said,
noises.
as I said at the beginning of the meeting, that councillor in Wellington who got up with no pants on was recorded, and we don't want to have a similar sort of thing happen amongst ourselves.
Are we still recording?
Yes, we're still recording, John, so don't say anything that you don't want to repeat it.
I never do.
Yeah, close us with a prayer so you can all go.
Thank you, Moko. Yes, we'll pass the meeting to you. Thank you.
Kia hora te marino, kia hakapapa pounamu te moana, kia tere te karohirohi mua. May the seas be calm, glisten and shimmer like greenstone and dance across thy pathway. Have a good afternoon.
Kia ora, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, Sean and the staff for participation, and all the councillors, elected members. Thank you all. Stay safe, and we'll no doubt see you on a meeting somewhere tomorrow.